Now we have a surprise performance that none of you know about because we chose to not disclose it on our website or on LinkedIn, nowhere else. So we're going to flip 180 degree in a good way to the generation that you don't hear much on such stages for a conference on business, climate change, and nature. And it'll be hosted by my dear colleague at the Singapore office, Head of Education and Outreach, Jayashree. Please allow me to welcome her on stage and the surprise sharing by to our special, very, very special guest from the other side. This is so cool.
Thanks a lot, Kamal. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a great time to be here because I think since morning we've heard a lot about education, future generations, what we owe to them. But I think what is right is actually to put them on stage and hear from them. Because what we think we have to do for them could be different from what they are expecting from us. So I'm so happy to have Dhirav and Anning from Greenwood Primary School. The school is actually the school is a long-term partner with the WWF Eco Schools program, and they are winners of the internationally recognized Green Flag Award a few years in a row now. So I think at this point, maybe we can start with the basics. So I would like to hear from both of you. What are the impacts of climate change that you experience on a daily basis?
Have you noticed the weather? Sometimes it's super hot, and then suddenly, boom, there's a thunderstorm.
Yes, and there are recently more flash floods in Singapore now. It can flood really fast after heavy rain. We also observed that there were brown spots in our recent hydroponics harvest. After conducting some research, we found out that this was due to the intense heat or sunlight from the surroundings. This observation reinforces the reality of climate change.
Thank you. So then what do you do to reduce some of the footprint within your campuses, make them more sustainable? And what are some of the ideas or initiatives that you have implemented on campus?
In my CCA, we take care of the hydroponic system. That means we grow vegetables without soil. We harvest and donate them to the vegetables. We harvest them and donate to the vegetables to the community fridge of families in need in our school. We also pack them in biodegradable bags and add notes to explain why hydroponics is so good for the environment. In my CCA, we also have school-wide events like the Clean Plate campaign that informs us to buy what we consume. Palu Sumaka landfill space is going to run out in 2035 based on the recycling statistics. We need to practice the 4 Rs, which are recycle, reduce, reuse, and replace, to avert this as one united Singapore.
We also do research on endangered wildlife species in Singapore. And guess what? Recently, our hydroponic system became even more eco-friendly. It now runs on a solar panel. Thank you WWF for helping us with that. Our school also has solar panels on its roof. The energy from the solar panels is supplied to the 4th floor in our school. There's even a cool mural wall in our 1st floor explaining how much energy we are using and saving. We link it to our science lessons. We also have a rainwater harvesting system in our school. This system harvests the rainwater and purifies it so that we can water the plants.
Actually, I've been to their school multiple times now, and I've seen all these initiatives, And it's really encouraging to also see that it's actually the students that do all the day-to-day maintenance. So they go in to maintain the hydroponics, they are harvesting, they are growing. So they have much more hands-on experience in many of these initiatives, I would say. I think we've heard quite a bit since morning about the climate crisis, but also what we owe to the next generation. So I would like to also hear from them. What are your thoughts about hearing this, about being a generation that is going to inherit a planet in crisis?
Honestly, I feel very worried. We are already facing problems such as deforestation, animals losing their homes, and even lives being lost. To the generation that is inheriting all these problems, it must be very hard for us to be able to face these problems and live in such a world.
It makes me sad too. That's why I joined this CCA so I can do something to help the environment.
Actually, they are both from the environmental CCA in their school, the co-curricular activity that they do beyond their curriculum hours. So let's learn a little bit more about what their roles are. So what do you do with the CCA that you're part of, and how do you actually convince your peers to also take up sustainable practices?
This year, I spoke at the school assembly for World Water Day. It was my first time sharing.
I've done quite a few sharings too. And guess what? We even made a song to remind our friends to save water. We'll sing a part of it for you now.
Okay, ready?
Brushing my teeth, I turn off the tap. Washing the dishes with a quick snap. Fixing the leaks, big and small. Let's keep saving water, y'all.
Rainwater harvesting, a clever design, dry resistant plants look so fine. Come on, Greenwood, let's keep saving water. All you gotta do is just turn off the tap.
Save water, save the day. Don't let it wash away. Save water, save the day. It's a work of art. Save water, save the day. Don't let it wash away. Save water, save the day. It's a work of art.
I must say, I've heard this song a couple of months back, and it still stays with me. Save water, save the day. When I go take a shower every morning, when I'm like washing my hands, every single time it runs in my head, and that is sometimes the impact of such simple messaging, but also hearing from such powerful voices. I would like to end this segment by asking, I'm sure you both listen from your parents, friends, teachers on what you have to do. I think we only owe it to us. What do you think we, people in the room and beyond, should be doing to create a better future?
I hope we can all try to save electricity. Burning fossil fuels for electricity is one of the main causes of climate change. Instead, we can use cleaner energy like solar, wind, or water power. We can also have rules for how much electricity homes and factories can use. In some countries, I've seen people recycling by themselves. I hope that Singapore can have fun campaigns and give out vouchers to people so that people take the initiative and start recycling by themselves too.
I believe that everyone can help, even in small ways like saving water. Together, we can make a big difference.
Thank you so much, Dhirav and Anning. A big round of applause to the two of them.
Wow, I'm just almost speechless. When I heard this like a couple of months ago from the kids at an Oceans dinner we had, I was like, can we have this for the business leaders in Singapore and the government in Singapore and everyone else? So I hope you liked it. This was the surprise we had in mind. And it's something, inspiration can come from many places, but definitely if it comes from the next generation, that we don't pass the mess for them to solve, as they put it. When I was growing up around their age and slightly more, I used to run a campaign in India called #DoWhatYouLove. So if this is what you love, if you love rapping, please rap. If you want to be a nature DJ, be a nature DJ. If you want to be a climate DJ, be a climate DJ/director like me. So of course, it can come from many sources as long as you're part of the solution. So I'll shift gears now to start wrapping up this amazing summit. And thank you so much for all of you who are still here. And last two editions, last 2 years, we were like, where do the people go after lunch? And we were very curious. But thank you so much. And I want to give you a big round of applause already for still being here. It shows your commitment for climate and nature. And one of the more controversial subjects of climate change has been the use of carbon credits. And I began learning about it last year, and I was like, what is this offsetting mechanism? And I think Dr. Madhura put it rightly. You can't be burning forest on one side and then offsetting on the other side, because that's not how the planet works. So to explain to you the WWF position on carbon finance and markets, I would now like to invite on stage Ruben Manukara once again, who will highlight the position that WWF takes at COPs and other opportunities that we get to influence a high-integrity carbon finance market. Please welcome Ruben once again.
Hi, good afternoon again, everyone. So maybe just a follow-up from what Kamal said. The intent of this is to, as you would realize from the agenda, is to flow through into the financing element, which is a key element and a very important element of climate finance. And in that space, WWF has recently, or not so recent anymore, in the last 6 months or so, made our positions and perspectives on carbon finance clear. Right? So I've tried to keep it really short, 4 quick slides. Tried to one better than Edwin did. But just focusing on 4 key messages that you could take away from this that hopefully is able to translate what our perspectives are on this very important topic. So the first key message really is, where is climate action needed, right? So very often for companies, there's a focus on how do your companies reduce your scope 1, scope 2, scope 3. And that's important, and it's absolutely essential that companies reduce emissions. But what that also might mean is that some ecosystems and some places of nature that have high conservation value, as what Madhu and Rohit were explaining earlier, would lose out for climate investments. So when climate action is done, we can't have a singular, or we shouldn't, or corporates shouldn't have a singular focus on their supply chains and what their scope 1 to 3 emissions is, but also look at what is beyond their supply chains and how they can make investments in nature and channel financing towards it, right? And that relates to the next point, which is it's not just about the climate. The climate, nature, and people are interconnected. So as corporates are making their investments, or as individuals or even governments are making their investments, it's important not to have carbon tunnel vision, right? Have a singular focus on, am I reducing my emissions? Rather, the question that we ask our corporate partners is your climate action benefiting the climate, the people, and also nature? So that's fundamental in the first aspect of it. The second key message is, business transformation translates to business resilience, right? And earlier in the day, we heard from Enterprise Singapore, and Cindy was mentioning this, right? A sustainable business is a good business. Why that's the case? Because first, a sustainable business allows the business to take climate action in areas where they can drive the greatest impact. But secondly, and crucially, it also increases business performance because you are future-proofing your supply chains, for example. And the last example, and it's a good segue to my next point as well, is that it allows companies to play a part in the transformation of their sectors, industries, and eventually economies. And a critical part of that transformation is to shift mindsets. And at WWF, we hold this very dearly, which is to move away from a concept where we say that if you are an emitting company, if you are an emitting country, you need to compensate for what you're emitting. but it's to move away from that model of compensating and explore how companies can contribute to global goals. So we've heard earlier in the panel between Manuel, Joe, and Esther, how there are global goals adopted. So now the question is, how can individuals, how can companies contribute to those goals and not just be singularly focused on their carbon emissions? And the last aspect, and the elephant in the room, as Kamal alluded to, is where does carbon credits feature as part of this? And at WWF, we believe that carbon credits is a useful tool, to drive decarbonization if it is used in the right way. And if it is used in a way that recognizes that it is not the only tool. There are other tools available, sustainable loans, bonds, and where carbon credits are the most effective tool to drive decarbonization, then it's okay for corporates to reach them. But that's after they have gone through the mitigation hierarchy and done all they can, and there would be some emissions still left, and that's when corporates should reach for the tool, which is carbon credits, to drive that decarbonization. And also recognizing that it's not the only tool. I mean, earlier we heard about initiatives like the Tropical Forest Forever facility that adopts a completely different paradigm to carbon financing and climate financing. So that's an addition to what carbon credits can offer. So that's hopefully a good segue and a teaser into the next panel, which is on carbon finance. But I thank you again for your patience and time, and hopefully there's some takeaways on what WWF's perspectives are on this important topic. Thank you, everyone.